How's it going? Sometimes when I spend too long in that sound booth, I go a bit nuts. I made a plan to do more than usual because I really want to get my album done. I failed, and I just went into procrastinating, and that's something that I call procrasti-planning. There's also procrasti-cramming, what you do at university when you're cramming for an exam, but there's procrasti-planning, is where you just sort of binge on planning. And it's not all bad. I actually think it's really good to because it means you're getting out of your logical brain and you're getting a bit more creative. But sometimes I don't execute on the plan that I make, and sometimes I make the plans too difficult because on one day I might be able to do a plan, but the next day I won't because my energy is not the same or something. So I really want to get my album finished. And I worked out it would take me about another 60 hours to finish it, right? And that's not including promoting and making videos and stuff, but 60 hours to finish just get all the Cubase files together, the music files, and send them off to the guy to be mixed. I'd had it with my last album too. It was I always wanted it done. It's I hated it. It's God, I just wish this was over and done with now because I hate it. Procrasti-planning, that's when you binge on planning. And like I say, don't beat yourself up for doing it, because I do this all the time too. Because you don't really know what you're capable of until you try. So therefore you make a big plan. I was look, it's 60 hours to finish my album, right? Why don't I just do it in I did have 4 days off because it's January. I don't get much work as a musician. Going out in Leeds in January is not much going on. It's cold. I just thought January would be the perfect time to just do 16 hours a day for 3 or 4 days, but I didn't follow through because I just couldn't do it. I think they call it being an optimalist, is when you come up with a schedule which is the most optimum and which actually will happen. I think if I was to do 16 hours a day, it would happen in the same way that, say, spending time on, for example, I spent about tons and tons of time on lyrics on this one song over the last week. I must have spent 20 or 30 hours just doing the lyrics, and sometimes I was smoking weed, but sometimes I wasn't. But I was kind of getting into a bit of a zone and a flow with it, and hours just went by and by and by and by, and I wasn't counting up the hours for that. And that's when I think you can do 16 hours a day, is when it's you just kind of do it, the way that you start by spending 2 minutes on it and then you end up spending 10 hours on it. That's when you can do 16 hours a day. When you just it's a bit when you use Facebook for 2 minutes and then you look up and it's been 6 hours talking about. So procrasti-planning. Oh yeah, the 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule is something I've been doing recently. So even though I use a 50-minute timer to time my blocks of work, I always start with 2 minutes, right? Because I've heard about this rule for years, the 2-minute rule. It's just do 2 minutes, put 2 minutes into your calendar and just commit to 2 minutes. You'll probably do more, but you're only committing to the 2 minutes. And this sounds, I know why, to smart people, this sounds stupid, because this is what I thought. I thought the 2-minute rule, that's bullshit, because I want to do more than 2 minutes. And I know that's just a trick to get me to do more than 2 minutes anyway. So I'm not going to fall for that trick. That is kind of what I thought about that. So I didn't do the 2-minute rule, but I've started to do the 2-minute rule because that is what moving from theory to practice is. It's actually doing these little things. It only takes 2 minutes as well. And so when you commit to say I'm just going to spend 2 minutes on this really boring project. After 2 minutes, right, this is what happened when I was doing the mixing of the album. I did 2 minutes opening up this Cubase project, feeling oh God, I don't want to do this. And I literally felt like that. And at the end of the 2 minutes, I stopped and I was like, right, that's it. And I think I went to make some food. And while I was making the food, I was thinking about, I could actually just open up that folder of files. That would probably take me about 10 minutes. So I just went back in and did another 23 minutes. And that's how it kind of happens. It kind of happens by doing 2 minutes at a time. like everything, like when you go on social media and you spend too long on it, it's like you never go, oh, I'm going to spend 12 hours on Facebook. But occasionally that happens because you're just going to get lost in the stream of it. So what was I talking about there? Procrasti-cramming, the 2-minute rule. The other thing I was going to talk about was when you're making changes to your previous self, what I have noticed is like there's some remnants of your previous self that sort of take over sometimes. So like yesterday when I've usually been quite good with like scheduling days, but the last couple of days I just kind of went into what I might have done about, a few years ago, which is just make a massive plan and then just waste the whole day. But that's not my like normal day anymore. But I feel like there's like these remnants of your previous self that take over, almost like I've got multiple personalities, and you have multiple personalities too. And it's almost like each personality has different motivations. I've got a personality that really wants to go out and socialize every day. But then there'll be another personality of mine which actually just wants to finish my album and stay in all the time and probably make more money. So you almost have these different people who are like, you have to have conversations between them. And you have to cater to all their needs, at least a little bit, because eventually one of them is going to be in control and they're going to ruin the planning of that one of the other personalities made. So that's what I find myself doing when I say procrastinate or waste the whole day. I feel like I'm going crazy because I'm like, I just made this plan. Can I not decide on something myself and actually do what I said? That's why it makes me feel a bit crazy. But then often what I fail to recognize is that there's a different personality in control in that moment. And just like if it was a real person, you'd want to talk with that person and like make a kind of deal. Like, all right, look, if you just do 4 hours a day of this album, yeah, you'd say, or I'd say to myself, then you can go out for 2 hours every day. Or you can go out 2 hours in the morning and then 2 hours in the evening to socialize. And that's a deal that person who wants to socialize can be like, all right, deal, that's a deal.